What's the best way to get where you want to be? Take a step in the right direction, right? What's the easiest step to take? Well, that'd be the baby step. Leaps of faith are crazy, heroic even. But it's the baby step over and over and over that gets you where you want to go. Consistently, dependently, reliably, safely. Fuck safety. But safely. This episode discusses the ideas of baby steps in a way that makes fun of parents who think they're the most important things in the world and also emphasizes the fact that they probably fucking are. Enjoy this episode. We're going off topic. I'm Matthew East. Cue the music. Matthew East. We're off topic. It's time for another episode, so I'm going to make one up for you. This is a idea that just popped into my head sometime, a week ago. I didn't know what the next episode was going to be, and like I said, I've got a bunch of topics sort of waiting in the wings, but as long as I'm staying current with the thoughts I'm having, I think that's fun.
Not all the thoughts he's having. That would be uncomfortable.
And it also creates spontaneity. Spontaneity is awesome in a podcast. It's not all planned. Sometimes I have a outline that I have up here that I look at, that I've thought out. And I've done a bunch of episodes recently that have not gone with that format. I kind of got passionate last time. Talked about sacrifice. Well, this one is hopefully going to be funnier and
lighter. And darker. You'll see.
But it's the idea of baby steps. Now, no one gives a fuck about a baby taking steps except their parents.
And pedophiles. That didn't take long.
Most of the time, it's more fun to watch the kid fall, I apologize. That was unattractive. But no one cares. Mom and dad do. It's the coolest thing in the world to them. But a baby's steps are, it's not your kid. And it's usually not. But baby steps in life, man, they can be, they are kind of almost everything. And you can have a positive impact on your goals using the concept of baby steps. You can also lose track of something you're trying to maintain if you find yourself taking baby steps in the wrong direction. Baby steps are good or bad depending on the direction they're going.
Usually better headed away from the pedophile.
That's sort of the bigger idea. But they're super pertinent, man. The idea of the tiny little movements that we make in the right or the wrong direction and what it does to us. Let's start negative first. This is my second attempt recording this, and I tried to start on the positive, and I ended up on the negative so fast that it turned into a fucking rant. So I don't want this to turn into a rant. But baby steps in the wrong direction are insidious, and every one of them seems sort of acceptable or meaningless. Except when they add up, you can start somewhere good and you can end up like, what the fuck's going on here? Weight is an example. I remember, I'm like 213. My fighting weight is somewhere in the mid-teens, mid-200-teens. And I remember a while back after I got out of the military and I'd been doing real estate for a while, I just remember looking in the mirror one day and sort of doing one of those. You ever smile at yourself just to be like, "Hey, how you doing?"
No one does that.
Well, I smiled at myself and I had like dimples and shadows in places, and I was like, cheese and rice. What happened? And I stepped on the scale and I was 242 pounds. You can do the math. It's like 30 pounds more. And yeah, I was okay being in the 220s, but 242, not for this guy. And I was like, what the fuck got me here? Well, I tell you what got me there. A bunch of baby steps. A bunch of little, I'm okay having chips and salsa every night of my life with my bourbon or whatever, like, because I like it and it's tasty and whatever. But then I made a decision that I was going to move back in the right direction, and I decided not to try to do it overnight. I was like, this is bad, but I don't have a timeline. I just want it to get better and better and better and better until I'm back where I want to be. That allowed me to succeed. If I would have gone on a broccoli diet the day after I scared myself in the mirror.
You'd have been fat and stinky below the belt. Wait, or is that asparagus?
With my fucking St. Nick jolly old grin. It never would have worked, right? It's like the New Year's resolution, go to the gym and you go like 6 days a week. You got your new little outfit and everything else. And 2-3 weeks in, you're like, this is fucking exhausting. I can't do this. Versus some sort of moderation. Change a little bit of diet, change a little bit of exercise, move slowly. All I did was make some small changes in my diet and gradually worked my exercise back. And I think it took me fucking, 18 months or something to lose 30 pounds. But and by the way, I didn't weigh myself every day either. I gave myself a rule that I would just weigh myself once a week. And that way I could have a bad day and not kill myself. But as long as I got to the end of the next week and stepped on the scale and saw a half a pound less, something less than before, I could tell myself I'm moving in the right direction. That's like as baby steps as an example as I can think of.
Speaking of baby steps and pedos, since I'm still on the subject, brainstorm. Good defense against the pedos for the babies. Creamed asparagus.
And whatever got me to 242 pounds got me back down into the 220s over the course of a pretty long period of time. It was at least a year. Because I just changed very small things. Now, if you've allowed the baby steps to go over there, if you're watching YouTube, I'm pointing off the screen. Like if you're way gone, okay, maybe it's time to take a leap of faith. Maybe it's time to do something extreme. Let's talk about baby steps versus leaps of faith. Both are important in life. I would argue that baby steps are more important, even though leaps of faith seem more significant. Leaps of faith are like the difference between peeking at a girl from behind a tree that you like in high school or hopefully junior high. I don't know, depending on when you grow up. Having your friends ask her friends if she likes you. The dumb stuff that kids do when they're pursuing. Come on, screen. There we go. The dream romance. Sending a note. Looking at her and looking away and then looking back, hoping she's still looking at you, which she never is.
He sure does seem to know a lot about the horribly awkward pursuit of girls.
Those are the baby steps that maybe you ought to just do the leap of faith and walk up and say, hey, you're really pretty. I think you're funny. I'd like to take you out for ice cream. But we're petrified of that. We're petrified of the leap of faith. And yet the people who take leaps of faith at the right time generally give themselves the most chances to succeed. Key is at the right time. Most of life is baby steps. The rest is leaps of faith. I don't know if I'll philosophize more on that later in the episode. Sorry, bumped the table. But that's the idea is that working slowly toward my goal of getting back down toward 215 was the way I was going to succeed. And what's ironic, let's just do a little jump around here. We'll go back to my Master Cleanse episodes. My very first Master Cleanse busted me through the 220s and got me down into the teens again. I kind of plateaued It's not a plateau if you're going down. What is that? I don't know. I leveled off in my weight loss and couldn't get further with the small changes that I'd been willing to make. And so it took an extreme thing like a master cleanse. Go listen to those episodes. I'll put a link here up on the screen for a second if I can figure it out. If not, just go find it. I'm not super savvy yet with YouTube. I know how to do it at the end. I'll see if I can figure out how to do it right now. And if so, it'll pop up right over here. And you can go find Master Cleanse, my most recent one, and learn what it's like to do a Master Cleanse, how to do it, and how fucking badass it is if you can pull it off. But that's how I got back down into the teens. I took a leap of faith. I baby stepped my way to a point where I couldn't get any further, and then I took a leap of faith. Got me the rest of the way. That's life, Earthlings. That's my point. You got to do both. You got to know when to do both. You can't be afraid to take a leap of faith, but if you take too many, you're going to end up at the bottom of a ravine with a broken neck. Make sure there's water down there. Most of the time, just keep going. I used to lead men's hikes when I was director of men's ministry at a church I was going to. And we would get guys out on the trail for generally 4 days at a time where your cell phones don't work and you get away from the noise of the world and you also physically tap yourself out. You get to the end of yourself and boy, it's amazing the kind of breakthroughs you find out there when you do that. I loved doing that. The season of my life that I got to do that. Shout out to Bryce.
We don't share our friends' last names on a podcast, dumbass. Why? We're not sure.
Help me with a bunch of that stuff. Bryce, if you're watching, hope you're doing well, bro. But on the trail, you'd get these guys who'd never done this before, and the idea of trees and rivers and scenic views and fresh air sounds really good until you find yourself with 40 pounds on your back looking up a set of stairs that have been built into the side of a mountain that's so steep that you can't just do it with a trail anymore. And it's the 14th set of stairs you've seen today. And you just want to curse and give up and just fucking sit down and cry like a child. Like a toddler taking his first steps. That's a bad segue. But you get that guy to stand up and you tell him the only thing that I want you to think about is the next step. You take as long as you need between each one, and when you have the energy to take the next step, you take it. And everybody makes it. It's not always steps. Sometimes it's just miles, but these trails are not everybody does it because it's hard. But when you do it and you get to camp that night, even if you're the last one into camp, and we'd go back, of course, we'd never leave anybody alone. But even if you're coming in with the help of me or another leader or something like that, and you make it, and maybe the sun's setting, and somebody helps you, or, get your tent set up and get your boots off, and you sit down in front of that campfire. And then there's the laughter and the talking and the food and just the brotherhood of that moment. Everybody made it. All the baby steps were worth it. Of course, you got to wake up the next day and fucking do it again. You're sore as shit. Your feet hurt. But it's incredible. It's incredible what baby steps can do when you just don't have a choice but to keep going. You watch people grow up through baby steps, just the same way you watch your children learn to crawl and then learn to walk and then learn to run. Baby steps are the key. Leaps of faith are important, but baby steps are everything. It's tortoise in the hare, Just keep going. Now, we're going to go the other direction. I lost track of my weight, and I use that as a relatively non-controversial example of negative baby steps. But it can be insidious in other ways too. This woke thing we've been experiencing in this country for a period of time. There's very few people left.
Key word being left. Not you moderates. We're talking about the wackos.
Who would want to argue with me when I say that we're all pretty much aware we went too far. You know, guys with dicks in women's locker rooms and competing in their sports and the stuff that happened, that we're finally coming back to center and realizing that we went too far. That was society taking baby steps. You know, it's one thing to say that someone who's different shouldn't or should be respected. It's another thing to say that they need to be celebrated. Newsflash, Earthlings. If you're different, and let's get away from gender, let's just in general. If you were in a car accident and you lost half your arm, or if you were in the war and you lost half your face, your life is going to be harder. It sucks, but life isn't fair. This idea of fairness for everybody has been baby stepped into something unachievable. Words that sound good but have no practical application. But like, if you're different, your life is going to be harder. And the very best thing you can do is accept that, embrace it, own it, and then go kick ass. Asking for fucking hugs and sympathy and understanding. The world is never going to give it to you the way that you want it. You can get little bits and you can baby step your way into being patted on the back for your courage and all that, but it's never going to be enough. So you're going to keep baby stepping further and further, more and more, and it's not going to fulfill you. Politically, there's this thing called progressives. Problem with progressives is if you get to your goal and you want to be a progressive, you can't stop, because that's the definition of progressive. You got to keep making progress. You got to be going somewhere. So if you've gone to the right place, you've got the right amount of equity and equality and recognition. You can't stay a progressive by not saying, no, we need more, which is how we got to some of the craziness that we got to. We're trying to get figured out now. Swinging the pendulum back toward the middle. Will we go too far again? I'm not too proud to say, who knows, maybe so. But again, where do you stop? If every move is a baby step, none of them seem too terrible. But before you know it, you find yourself off somewhere, and the corrections are more painful than just stopping when you had what you really probably needed, as opposed to needing more and more. All right, recenter the conversation. Let's keep it light. When do baby steps become inadequate, and when do you have to take a leap of faith? Use the dating example earlier. You know, you can pussyfoot around.
Well, there's a euphemism that sounds more like a fetish.
This girl that someday you fucking want to kiss the way you do in your dreams. Won't go too far down the dream path.
Wise. Very, very wise.
Or you can go ask her out. That's easy.
But back to pussyfoot. Is that one fetish or two? And if it's two, is it two fetish? Like two fish? If so, it could be said that a pedo has a plethora of sick fetish, some of which can be thwarted by a steady diet of asparagus. Unless multiple fetishes, in which case you gotta eat a lot of asparaguses, I guess.
But that happens in life too. Like, I'm staying the course, I'm being persistent, but now I got an obstacle that looks really dangerous. What is the balance between baby steps and leaps of faith? That's the real question, right? How do you accept the idea that slow and consistent is necessary in a world where immediate, instant gratification has become so normal and, for all intents and purposes, expected? I don't know. But I do know that if you want something of significance, you can't get discouraged when it doesn't just fall in your lap and get handed to you. And you have to learn that at some point. Just like a kid has to learn to walk, a young adult has to learn to persevere in life, whether it be financial or occupational, relational. You gotta learn that it doesn't just come easy all the time, and you can't get frustrated by the fact that there is no leap of faith that can be taken with any expectation of success. At some point, parents, you gotta stop giving your kids what they need and empower them to get it for themselves. Yeah, I know. Shocking. For those of you on audio only, I just made a scary face or a scared face. What do you mean? You know, if kids get handed, it starts off, you got to hand your youngster everything they need because they have no capability to do anything for themselves. You literally spoon feed the nutrition that their body needs to survive and grow and thrive into their mouths, because without that help, they would fucking die. But between then and like they're going off to college, you got to equip them to take the baby steps for themselves. Same way you taught them to walk. Some of your kids didn't learn to walk as early as they could have because you carried them around everywhere. But like, the whole point of being a parent is to teach your kid to take their own baby steps with everything. To help them understand that they're not always going to be carried through life, because it doesn't work that way. You learn to crawl, then walk, then run, then leap of faith, if you will. And then judgment comes into play with which one you do. But there's parents carrying their 30-year-olds that are still living in their fucking bedroom in their house because they never learned how to function in society. Is it hard nowadays? Yeah, it's fucking hard. But that adult, that child, that man child or woman child,
I feel like it's normally the man child. Why is that? Oh yeah, the video games and porn
in that house is fucked because they weren't taught how to fight for themselves along the way, how to take their own baby steps. They were carried and put in the next good place until there were no more good places, and now all they want to do is sit because they don't know how to go searching for their own happiness, their own fulfillment.
Well, certain fulfillments can just be found on Google, including multiple fetish.
Every person ultimately needs to make choices for themselves, and all those the smaller the choices you have to make, the easier they are. So if you make them in increments, baby increments, along the way in the right direction, they kind of stay easy. And guess the other thing, that opportunity kind of comes along and stuff when you're moving in the right direction. But the minute you stop taking baby steps, you stagnate. And when you stagnate, the goal gets further away, or at least it doesn't get any closer. And then you're supposed to have gotten there, but you're still back here. Well, now there's some kind of leap that has to happen to get yourself where you want to be before it's too late. And the odds are against you, and you fail. And then you think, oh, the world failed me. No, your parents failed you. But no, you got to learn to step in the right direction, however small the step may be, and believe that taking the continued next step is great. And then when risk is appropriate, you learn about doing that as well. But if you're never empowered to do those things, you're never going to learn that for yourself. Earthlings, baby steps are how everything works best. And it's not a stretch to say that too many of us give up on the next baby step because it doesn't feel really any closer. You know, if there's 100 baby steps to go and you're taking one, you've only, 99 to go feels exactly like 100. And it can be, it can be discouraging. But taking the steps is more important than how far away you are from your goal. Because you wake up one day and you realize you've taken 70 steps and now there's only 30 left. And now all of a sudden it becomes easier to take the next one and the next one. But it's getting started that's hard. And that's what we need to learn. It's what we need to teach. It's what we need to learn. It's what we need to understand. You don't want to let yourself slide personally, societally, culturally, religiously, anything too far in the wrong direction. You don't want to give yourself too much. Cool shadow back there on the wall. You don't want to give yourself too much leeway. I went through an apple pie and ice cream at night phase recently. When you're physically fit and you really decide that you like apple pie and ice cream, you can get into some really bad habits. And by you, I mean me. Don't do that, because 6 pounds all of a sudden that has to go back. Good news is I caught it early. I don't know why I said that. I guess to exemplify or to state to you listeners that I am fallible. I don't know all this and just live it all perfectly all the time. I've taken baby steps in the wrong direction in a lot of different ways. And what you do when you realize that that's happening is you stop before you've taken too many. We can all learn from the idea that movement in the right direction is more important than the goal of that movement. Because the goal is generally pretty far away when you start. And giving up is way easier than being tenacious and tough and taking that next step up the next hill toward the campfire at the top with the view of the valley and the river with your brothers, like my guys on my hikes. Don't be afraid to take baby steps, and don't be discouraged when the baby steps you're taking don't seem to bring you much closer to where you want to be. They are. Just keep doing it. Just keep taking them. You'll get there. Leaps of faith are fun too. Maybe we'll talk more about those in a different episode. But I'm Matthew East. We've been Off Topic. We'll see you next time. All right, Earthlings, thanks for being here. Thanks for sticking with me. And if you made it this far, why not take it a step further and give me a quick subscribe? I'm going to show you energy, diversity. We're going to make you smile and laugh and think in this rebirth of Off Topic. We're finding our groove here in 2026, and we're going to get you 3 episodes a month on the 7th. So look for us on the 7th, 17th, and 27th. Also, check out the email address and phone number on your screen if you'd like to participate. Take a screenshot, write it down, replay it, whatever you got to do. But reach out. I'd love to hear from you. This is Matthew East signing off, and we'll see you next time.